What's up everyone, it's Caddy with MoneyVest. So in this video, we are going to be talking about the Bitcoin saga that's been going on between Grayscale and of course the SEC, Securities Exchange Commission, that's been going on for quite some time, since June of last year. So it's been a little over a year that they've been going back and forth with each other, but the court ruling came in on Tuesday, and that's one of the reasons why crypto and crypto stocks were absolutely on fire and just absolutely flying over 10, 12, 30%, 20% on the day. So I'm going to break down everything you need to know on this particular matter. As always, if you enjoyed, find it helpful, make sure that you drop a like, subscribe to the channel. Link to our Discord and Patreon is going to be down below if you're interested in joining, and of course getting access to all the buy and sell alerts, options alerts, trade ideas. Everything is going to be included. That 16% annual discount that does expire at the end of this month, so 2 more days left and a few more spots that I've opened up for you guys. So links are going to be down below. And don't forget, the fundamental and technical analysis courses as well as the options course and the bundles are all on 50 to 60% discount for Labor Day, and the coupon code is going to be Labor4, and that's also available with the link down below. So this right here is the catalyst. So court grants Grayscale's petition for review in Bitcoin ETF case against the SEC. So a 3-judge panel for the DC Circuit Court of Appeals sided with Grayscale Investments in its battle against SEC. And the battle really is that SEC basically approved a futures ETP, that's exchange traded product, but not an actual Bitcoin spot ETF, right? So the difference between these two is huge, not only in terms of volatility, in terms of pricing, in terms of accessibility. There's just a lot of different things that are advantageous when you are going through an ETF versus when you are going through a futures product, which I will explain later in the video. But the firm had argued that the SEC's approval of ETFs investing in Bitcoin futures contracts but not proposed products that would hold Bitcoin directly is arbitrary and capricious, yeah, however you say that. But it is quite interesting, right? It's quite crazy that they would approve a futures ETF but not a spot ETF. And the SEC was sued by the crypto asset manager Grayscale Investments last year, and a federal appeal court ruled Tuesday that the SEC must reconsider the crypto asset manager's Grayscale Investments application to launch the first Bitcoin ETF. Right? ETF is an exchange traded fund, right? So the way exchange traded funds basically work is just like an S&P 500, right? Or a NASDAQ, right? These are ETFs as well. And they are exchange traded funds in a way that they are a basket of basic assets, right? In the SPY, S&P 500, the most popular ETF in the world, SPY, it's also an ETF that basically holds over 505 companies or 500 stocks are within that ETF, right? Within that fund. And basically, if you buy SPY, you're buying a small percentage of those companies, right? You're basically having that ownership in those small companies. Now, QQQ is the very same way, right? Instead, it's the NASDAQ. It's another ETF. It's an exchange traded fund, where if you're investing in the NASDAQ, right, you're buying, over whether it's the NASDAQ 100 or the NASDAQ composite, you're buying a basket of all stocks, right? And same thing would apply with a spot ETF, where a crypto ETF would basically have Bitcoin, it would have Ether, it would have maybe other crypto assets as well, combined together in different percentages or allocations, or even straight up Bitcoin ETF, right? That would simply just in that fund would be Bitcoin. It would be holding Bitcoin, and people buying that ETF would basically have a small percentage ownership in that ETF. Of course, will be able to take advantage of having exposure to Bitcoin without having to actually own it, right? Same thing with ETF is that you don't need to buy Apple. You can just buy S&P 500 that actually owns Apple in that fund. So that's the whole idea behind ETFs. And of course, this has been going on forever. And first Bitcoin ETF could be coming soon as court rules in favor of Grayscale over SEC. Now, this is a big catalyst. Like, this is a huge catalyst in the crypto world because a spot ETF is essential. It is absolutely essential in making the next step and moving to the next step when it comes to cryptocurrencies. And on Tuesday, the court sided with Grayscale in a lawsuit against SEC, which had denied the company's application to convert the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust to an ETF, and the decision could impact other companies that want to create Bitcoin ETFs like BlackRock and Fidelity. And these are big players, right? I mean, Grayscale may not be as big as BlackRock and Fidelity, and Grayscale won this lawsuit. So imagine what BlackRock and Fidelity can and will potentially do if they are looking to create this product for their customers, right? A spot Bitcoin ETF would be traded through a traditional stock exchange, right? And that's how ETFs are listed. They're listed on the stock exchanges. And although the Bitcoin would be held by brokerage and would allow investors to gain exposure to the world's biggest cryptocurrency without having to own the coin themselves. Many crypto bulls believe that the approval of spot Bitcoin ETF will lead to more mainstream institutional adoption and more retail adoption as well. I mean, think about how much money is going to flow into these ETFs once they are created, and that's only going to help what? The price of Bitcoin, right? So this right here, the commission failed to adequately explain why it approved the listing of 2 Bitcoin futures ETPs, but not Grayscale's proposed Bitcoin ETPs. Now, the difference between futures and actual spot. Futures are created through futures contracts, right? Futures options, right? Think about any other leveraged ETF product that you may have known or traded, like for example, TQQQ or UPRO or SOXL, right? A lot of these ETFs that I just mentioned are levered, right? They are leveraged to a point where the reason and the unique feature of that leverage factor is because they don't actually own the underlying stock, but instead they own contracts, options, and futures in a way that they've constructed a mechanism where they can track the underlying stock without having to own it. And that's expensive because you've got to roll out these contracts every single day, every single week, every single month, depending on that time structure. And it's also fees, right? You have to keep buying and selling these futures and these options in order to track the price appropriately, right? That becomes expensive, that becomes time consuming. It's a very, very resourceful mechanism of doing that. Instead, a Bitcoin ETP would do what? Nothing. It would just simply own Bitcoin and that's it, right? In that fund, it would own Bitcoin and investors can take advantage of it, take exposure in that ETF, and that's it. There's no rolling over these contracts or options or futures, paying fees to generate these, to create these structures. So it's going to be a lot easier for investors. And of course, it makes sense from a brokerage standpoint as well, why they need to offer this, because it's less expensive, less time consuming. And in the absence of a coherent explanation, this unlikely regulatory treatment of like product is unlawful, is what Grayscale also mentioned, and which manages the world's biggest crypto fund, initiated its lawsuit against the SEC in June 2022 after the agency rejected its application to turn its flagship Bitcoin fund, better known by the ticker GBTC, into an ETF, right? So right now, again, it is traded as a trust, but not as an ETF. The company decided to pursue the ETF, which would be backed by the Bitcoin rather than Bitcoin derivatives, after the SEC approved ProShares Futures Bitcoin ETF in October 2021. So again, it's going to be backed by Bitcoin and not by Bitcoin derivatives. And the thing is that this actually creates more volatility. So I'm kind of surprised that SEC is trying to block this and not this. I mean, this creates more volatility if you are kind of creating a structure where it's mostly derivatives, but not the underlying stock or ETF or asset in itself. A derivative would create more volatility, would create more problems, right? Just like leverage ETFs do, right? They create more volatility as opposed to just a regular SPY or regular QQQs or regular ETFs that don't really necessarily create that much volatility. So Tom Lee basically mentioned that he expects Bitcoin at $150,000 with spot ETF approval. So again, we'll find out. Again, this is not a done deal, obviously, right? This is only approved to a point where the SEC needs to reconsider this potential application, right? So again, at the end of the day, it's still the SEC, it's still Gary Gensler who is going to be, basically responsible for this. So that being said, coming over to Bitcoin, price of Bitcoin obviously did rally quite a bit, on the day, up a little bit over 6 to 7%, getting up to almost $28,000. Once again, this right here is going to be that resistance level to watch, all the way up to 31,600. And Ether also rallied on this news, but getting up to that resistance at 1730. Now, as I've mentioned before, there's no way for me to actually value Bitcoin, right? So there's no way for me to put down a fair value on Bitcoin and Ether and be like, okay, this is the fair value, this is the intrinsic value on Bitcoin, because there's no cash flow, there's no earnings, there's nothing. Like, it's literally trading on demand and supply. So all we really have is price action and technicals, right? Because fundamental analysis doesn't quite exist, in my opinion, doesn't quite exist when it comes to cryptos. I do have a very, very small amount of Mara. That's all I have. And of course, if it does get approved, obviously Bitcoin can see a lot of surge in momentum, a lot of demand which will benefit a lot of miners as well. But now that I've relocated, I am planning to basically dollar cost average and start positions in actual cryptocurrencies as well to take advantage of that potential catalyst that maybe down the road can serve as a momentum creator for Bitcoin and for Ether. So let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Again, it's not going to be a huge allocation, less than 1%, less than 2%, just a little bit of diversification into cryptocurrencies because, like I said, there's no fundamental value, at least in my opinion, that we can calculate. But I'm sure there's a lot of sentiment and a lot of momentum driving the price today and, of course, in the future as well. So hope you guys enjoyed this video, found it helpful. Make sure that you drop a like. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. 16% annual discount available till the end of this month. As always, happy investing. I'll see you all in the next video.